What's up, guys? It's Austin Rutherford. I'm here today to tell a story of how I became a multi-millionaire by the age of 26. Today we're going to break down, the steps that I took to get there. Hopefully, some lessons along the way. Everything from owning rental properties to rehabbing houses to doing new construction to wholesaling houses. During my journey over the last 6-ish years, we flipped and or moved about 200 houses. And that's kind of what got me to the point I'm at now. And it's made me, millions and millions of dollars. But, that's not the whole story. There's a lot of things that come into that, taxes and payroll and fees and overhead and marketing budgets. So, millions and millions and millions of dollars in revenue does not equate to, the same net profit. There's a story behind all that, and that's what we're going to get in here today. So I wanted to break down, the entire thing start to finish, no fluff, no BS. I've seen some of these videos and it doesn't tell you, the details along the way. So I want to break it down to you, every step along the way that I took to create millions and become a multi-millionaire by the age of 26. I never had a silver spoon in my mouth. I was never spoon-fed, a crap ton of money. I was never spoon-fed an entire investment portfolio. This is something that I made from basically nothing. I always had a family that supported me from the very, very beginning. It's a blessing. It's been incredible. But we were never, extremely wealthy. So, this is the whole story. This is through the struggle, through the journey, a lot of ups and downs to any entrepreneurship journey. And that's what we're going into today. So, it all started when I was 13 years old. It was when I was living with my parents, obviously 13 years old. I was walking down the street and I met someone that was playing basketball outside. And from that point forward, that's when I completely fell in love with the game of basketball. My dream was to be an NBA player. And I would work literally all day, every day, at trying to make my dreams become a reality, i.e. going to the NBA. I heard a quote way back then: when you're not working, there's someone else out there working to take your spot. And that's always hit home for me. I've always taken that to heart. When I'm not doing what I should be doing, I know someone's out there trying to take my position. And I know that I need to work and put the right things in place, put the right systems in place, put the right peoples in place to take somebody else's spot. At the end of the day, life is win and lose. You know what I mean? There's winners in life and there's losers in life. So that quote sat, very deep with me because I've always taken that serious from that point forward. At the same time, during those same years, I've loved money. I've always loved money. I've always liked having money in my bank account, having money in my wallet. Just fell in love with it. From 13 to probably, 18 years old, I was just hustling any way I could. I would go out and cut the neighborhood's grass. I would go out all day, all morning, and just shovel driveways. Shovel as many driveways as possible, $10, $20, $30 to shovel the driveway. And I'd stack as much money as possible. Even in middle school and high school, what I would do is I would go to like Sam's Club or Costco and buy like candy and gum in bulk and take it in my book bag back to school and sell it out of my book bag. So I'd buy, for example, 10 Skittles for, 30 cents a piece. And then I'd go to school and sell them for $1 a piece. And I would just try and hustle and make money that way. Same thing with gum, all through middle school, all through high school. Even in high school, at the time, my principal, I was really cool with him, Mr. Carter, told someone that I had to come to the office. So I went into the office and he was like, "Look, man, are you selling drugs out your book bag?" I was like, "Nah, man, I'm just selling candy." It was candy and gum. I opened my book bag, showed it to him. He was like, "All right, you can't continue doing that. It just doesn't look right." So unfortunately, my candy business blew up at that point. But, before that, even in middle school, the thing that I made, my most money when I was young was a Buckeye necklace business. So I'm in the state of Ohio. We're Buckeyes, OH. So you take these Buckeyes and you put them on a necklace, and everyone, like at the games, football games, basketball games, you wear these necklaces. So what I did, we had a park next to our house, and it had a ton of Buckeye trees all over the place. So every spring or fall, whenever they fell, there were Buckeyes littered throughout the park. So I would convince my friends to ride down with me to the park on our bikes, had some book bags, had a whole bunch of Kroger plastic bags. We would go out there for hours and hours and hours and just go through the whole park and pick up thousands and thousands of Buckeyes. We would pick up the Buckeyes, we would ride back home. I convinced my parents to create an entire Buckeye shop in their garage. So we would come back home, we would wash all the Buckeyes, we would drill holes in all the Buckeyes, and we would string all the Buckeyes together with beads and make Buckeye necklaces. So I would actually go to the football games and the basketball games. My dad would take me down there and I would sell these necklaces, for $5 a necklace. I would pay my friends $1.50 for every necklace that they put together for me. So they would go down, help me find the Buckeyes, string the necklaces together. I'd pay them $1.50. I would buy the beads in the necklace rope. and I would sell it for $5 and I would make the difference. And we did, thousands of these. I made a lot of money. I don't know the exact number, maybe $5, $10, $15,000 selling Buckeye necklaces, as a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid. So throughout the whole time, I always loved money. I always had a hustle. I always, wanted to find and stack as much money as possible. So, through middle school and high school, I ended up stacking like $25,000 in my bank account. And my parents played it right. They always said, I got a bank account for you, put the money in there just in case, just so you don't lose it, or the house doesn't burn down. So I started putting my money in the bank account. They're like, anytime you want anything, we'll get the money out for you. Cause I was too young. I couldn't have a bank account in my name. So it was in their name. So as I was growing up, I was like, Mom, Dad, I want an ATV. Mom, Dad, I want a 4-wheeler. Mom, Dad, I want a dirt bike. Mom, Dad, I want a paintball gun. All these things that kids want just to, spend money and have fun. I wanted to buy these things. They would look at me like, nah, son, you can't get that. You're going to need this money for bigger things down the road. And I was pissed at the time because I worked all this time to save all this money and I couldn't even touch it. Like, it didn't make sense to me. But looking back, it was a blessing because that money is what, set me up to get my first purchase in real estate and continue growing from that point forward. So it was a blessing in disguise at the end of the day. Finishing up middle school and high school, again, my dream was the basketball thing. So I would ride my bike at 5 a.m. to the YMCA. I'd go there and work out. I'd shower there. I'd ride to school, middle school. I'd go, to middle school. I'd ride my bike back to the YMCA after school, and then I'd ride it home at like 7, 8 p.m. So I would go with like 4 backpacks. So I had changes of clothes for everything. Every morning I was doing this just because I was chasing that dream that I wanted. At the end of the day, basketball was it for me. School was cool. I never really understood like why we needed to know the Pythagorean theorem and the science table, and I don't even know what they're called nowadays because like to me it never made sense like how that would correlate to money. I did okay in school. I had A's and B's. I didn't put like a ton of time into school. It just kind of made sense for me. I promised my mother I'd get my college degree. That was always the goal. Go to school, get a degree, get a job, and keep going. So finally, high school, playing basketball, made the varsity team my sophomore year of high school, played varsity for 3 years, finished high school with no offers to go to college. I was devastated because I told you, that was my dream. The NBA was my dream. And right then I was like, is this what I should do? Is it real estate? Is it go to college? Is it get a job? I just decided, I was like, I'm gonna give this one more chance. So I went to Phoenix, Arizona to play basketball for a year at a junior college out there. When I was out there, I didn't lead. I was first or second in points and rebounds and assists and steals. And I was doing well. But for whatever reason, like halfway through the season, I completely fell out of love with the game. I hated basketball. I never wanted to touch a basketball again. And that was my life for like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so I was kind of lost. I didn't really know what to do. For whatever reason, I turned to books. Never read a book. I hated reading books, but I turned to books. Started reading Think and Grow Rich, phenomenal book. I read that when I was 18, changed my life forever. Highly recommend it. I don't know if this is true or not, but I read that 90% of all people who file a tax return with $1 million or more on it, had real estate in their portfolio. I was like, well, real estate's the way. Real estate's the way I'm gonna get rich. So I just started doing a lot of research on real estate. Started buying books on real estate. Anything I could do to learn real estate, I started doing. Something I was doing back then, I was 19 years old at a JUCO in Phoenix. I would go to the roof of our condo and I would just go up there and journal. I would just go up there and write down my thoughts for like 30 to 60 minutes every single day. One night I was sitting there and across the way there was an apartment building. I don't know, it had, let's call it 15 units. And I was just sitting there, I was like, okay, if 15 units, all of them are paying that man rent, he's got to pay the bank, he's got to be making more money than what he's paying the bank. I want to own real estate because he doesn't even have to do any of the work. I want to own rental properties, passive residual income, and that's how I'm going to get rich. So it finally clicked for me. So I finished school there. I finished the season. Once I commit to something, you got to finish your commitment. So finished school, finished the season, and I came back home to Columbus, Ohio, and got into real estate. This was like mid 2013 when I flew back home. But when I fell out of love with the game, I went back to what I knew, money. So I got a job valeting cars downtown Phoenix as I was finishing school and as I was finishing the basketball season. So still trying to stack as much money as possible. My friends, would be going out to, the ASU parties, and I would just be at work that night or at work the next morning, just stacking as much money as possible. So flew home to Columbus, Ohio, mid 2013. transferred valet jobs. So now I started valeting here in Columbus. It sucks in Columbus in the winter. It's freezing cold. It's terrible. But I started valeting here, and then, started looking for rental properties. So while I'd be at work, I'd be on the computer, looking up passive residual income properties. And finally, months and months later, December 2013 is when I was 19 years old, is when I bought my first rental property. It was a duplex on Ohio State's campus. All that money that my parents made me save when I was younger, I still had that money, and I've been adding to that money. So I had enough money to put a down payment on a duplex. It was $200-some thousand, $240,000 was a duplex. So I bought the duplex. My total mortgage payment, my PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, was about $1,400 a month. And when I rented it, it would rent for $2,600 a month. So I made $1,200 a month every single month on that property. And I still own it today. I owe about $200,000, and it's worth about $280,000. So I have $80,000 of equity in that same exact house, and I make money on it every single month. And that was my first purchase. That was my first, intro into the real estate realm. I loved it. I got a check every month for roughly about, $1,000, $1,100, and I never had to do any of the work. It was like mind blowing to me. So I was like, all right, how do I buy more rental properties? Keep in mind, my whole life, I saved up this money to put the down payment on one house. So I was like, oh man, I got to make money faster so I can buy more rental properties. My real estate agent on that deal made like $7,000 in real estate commissions. And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get my real estate license so I can start selling houses and making, these big real estate checks. So I went to real estate school. I think it was like $1,000. I did it in 2 weeks. I took the crash course. I got done as soon as possible, took the test, got licensed, and now I was in the real estate game. I started selling houses. I got licensed at a brokerage, and I would go to the office and sit there every day hoping for clients to walk in so I could meet with them to represent them as their agent. And I did this for months and months, and nobody ever walked into the house, ever. At the same time, I was still valeting cars. That's how I was making the money. So I ended up meeting two people at my valet job at the hotel. One was selling a house and one was buying a house. So I was like, perfect. I talked with them. They decided to let me represent them. I helped someone sell a house, and I helped someone buy a house. And I made probably $8,000 to $10,000 in commission, which is like the most money on one check I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, wow, this is a lot of money. But I hated the process. I hated driving around showing people houses. They'd walk through a house like, well, the paint color doesn't make sense. Well, paint the walls. You know what I mean? It didn't make any sense to me. So it was very frustrating selling houses for other people. And I wasn't making the really big money. So then I met a mentor of mine that taught me how to flip houses. It was one of those real estate education companies. They came into Columbus, did a 2-hour meeting. I went to that, did a 3-day meeting. I was the first one to sign up for that. It was like $200. First one to the back of the room. I wanted as much education as I could get in the world of real estate. Went to the 3-day meeting. Day 2, they pitched their mentor program, and it was $25,000, and you had to have it the next day. Keep in mind, I just bought this duplex, probably less than 6 months before that. I was broke. I had maybe a few grand to my name, not a lot of money. So what I did that night is I went home. I just had this feeling like that this was it for me. So I went home and I opened an Amex credit card. So I went on AmericanExpress.com. I don't know if you're supposed to do this. I told them I made a whole bunch of money. I told them I had a phenomenal credit score, and they gave me a $15,000 line of credit card. Got the credit card. I still needed some more money. Asked my mom, my dad, my grandma, my uncle. I asked, anybody I could think of that had money to pay the rest of the mentorship for me. And, most people were like, it sounds too good to be true. Like, I can't give you this money for a dream, which I get it. It's scary in times when you got to make investments in yourself. At the time, I was 20 years old. I was still living with my parents. My dreams were going down the drain. My real estate dreams were just disappearing. So I literally, about 1 a.m., after everybody told me no, I sat there and thought and couldn't figure out how to come up with the money. So 1 a.m., I literally crawled under my parents' dining room table and just started crying. I started bawling. It wasn't crying, it was bawling, because my parents actually heard me crying upstairs. They heard me, they came down. I guess they saw, how much that I wanted something, and my entire life going up to that. They see how much work I've put in basketball, in, flipping, cars, flipping candy, shoveling driveways, cutting grass, all those things I've done. They came downstairs and they're like, We believe in you, son. And they funded the rest of the money for me. So I bought into this mentor program. Man, I was gonna make $1 million this year in real estate. It's not what happened. From the day I bought into that program to the day I flipped and made money on my first house was a 16-month period. 16 months of grinding every day. I was still valeting, 50, 60 hours a week. I was still going to college full-time, taking 15 credit hours, and I was trying to start my real estate business all at the same time for 16 months straight. So the difference is, a lot of people would have given up during that time. I always say it's not a matter of if something happens, it's a matter of when something happens. So if you're chasing a dream right now, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So, I went through that process, 10 months from buying into the mentorship. 10 months in, I finally found my first deal. I found it. It was a $70,000 purchase, a $170,000 rehab, $240,000 on this property. I raised the money to fund the deal. I've managed a $170,000 rehab budget, no real estate background, no construction background, no business background. Parents, never had real estate, never had construction. I was going in and hoping for the best. Ended up working out. I finished that deal, sold that house 6 months later. So 16 months, I sold it and I put $103,000 net profit into my own pocket. After paying everybody off, I made $103,000 the week after my 22nd birthday. It was great. $103,000, that's life-changing to some people, you feel me? But during that process, I was the one swinging the hammer, demoing the house. I was the one that slept in the house for 2 nights in a row and stayed up till 5 a.m. to finish the project, to finish the paint, finish the trim, and clean the house. I put in the time to get there, and I made $103,000 net profit, and I did not go out there and blow it. I didn't, buy a car. I didn't go on some fancy vacation. I had a bigger dream of mine. I wanted more, way more than $103,000. So I actually literally didn't buy anything. I paid off all my debt, my credit card debt and so forth, and I put all the money back into the business. I didn't buy anything. I didn't move out of my parents' house. I stayed doing exactly what I was doing because I had bigger dreams. So I was still working valet. I was still going to school full time. And then 4 months later, I flipped my second house, made about $40,000 in profit. So I was almost $150,000 in profit in less than 6 months. At that point, I went to my job. I was like, hey, I was real cool with my boss. I was like, hey man, it's time. He's like, I understand, brother. Good luck. I was out. Last time I ever worked a job. I went to my mother, as I promised her I'd always, get my college degree. I went to my mother. I was like, hey ma, I don't think you're ever gonna see me walk across that stage. I'm not gonna be able to get a college degree. And she's known. She's been following the process. She know I made $150,000. She was like, I wouldn't expect anything different from you. So from that point forward is when real estate, really started to take off for me. The first year I didn't do any. Then the year after that was that 1 or 2 houses, and then I did like 7 or 8 houses, and then like 25 to 30 houses. So it really started growing at that point. It was booming. So during that time, from that point to the last 6 years, I flipped about 200 houses. It all started from doing my own marketing. So I would send out, direct mail. I would cold call people. I do my own marketing in real estate to get these deals. And along with flipping houses and renovating houses and rehabbing houses, I was buying rental properties along the way. So if we got a deal from my marketing campaigns that was a duplex or something, and it made sense as a rental property, cash flow wise, I would buy it, I would renovate it, I would put a tenant in it, and I would refinance it with a bank. And when you do that, if you do it correctly on the refinance, they'll give you all of your money back. So you can get into a property and have $0 out of pocket. So almost my entire real estate portfolio, I have $0 into it, and I own them all with financing in place. And then along this process as well, I got a lead in, and it was a duplex, and I've been wanting to live in a duplex so I could live in half and have the other half, the duplex, pay for my own mortgage, so I could live for free. So I bought a house, a duplex in the exact neighborhood I wanted, bought it for about $120,000, where I could live for free, where I could house hack, meaning that I live in half and my tenant pays the other half of the mortgage for me. So I'm into this property for about $230,000, and it's worth about $375,000. So I lived in the house and I had my tenants pay me, which covered most of my mortgage, and I had my friends live in my unit and some of the other bedrooms, and they paid me as well. So house hacking, great way to get into the real estate business. That's how I moved into my first house. And then I continued from there, flipping houses, and I saw this opportunity in an area that had a lot of renovations going on. And, the rehabs were selling for $300,000, $350,000, $400,000. And I had this idea from a buddy of mine to build new construction houses in this neighborhood. So, I've never built a new construction house. So I started, doing research, looking at numbers, looking at build costs. We would have to sell the house for more than a rehabbed house. The new construction one would have to sell more than a rehabbed house for it to make sense financially. Now, there was no data. There was 0 new home sales in the area. We kind of went out on a limb here. So I drove the entire neighborhood. I got all the vacant addresses written down, and I went around and bought as many of these vacant pieces of land as possible. So I wasn't buying like blocks. I was buying, individual parcels, infill lots close to downtown. So I went around and bought as many of these as possible. Then I went to the city. The city had some lots for sale. So I went to the city and bought 3 lots from the city. I think they were like $3,000 to $5,000 a piece. And I built 3 new construction homes on these houses. It was the first 3 in the neighborhood. I built them all hoping that they would sell for more money so I would make, a significant amount of profit. We got done with the house. We pre-sold one of the houses, which was awesome. And a funny story, the appraiser was pulling up to the house, and I actually lived down the street. So he was going up to the house to appraise it. I was pulling up to the house, and I was in my Jaguar, and my realtor was at the door with him. And she told me the conversation later. And the appraiser was like, well, isn't that too nice of a car to be in this neighborhood? Long story short, the house appraised for less than we were in contract for. I don't know if he was salty or what it was, but it was an unfortunate scenario. But sold these houses, sold all 3 of them, and made about $100,000 to $120,000 net profit on each of those houses. Now, keep in mind, I just created a market. I created a market with new construction, and I owned a lot of the land already surrounding that area. But once people saw those prices, everybody started coming down. Everybody bought, land in the neighborhood and started building new construction. So now there's 20, 30, 40 houses all in one neighborhood, new construction going up. So I didn't personally want to continue building new construction at a very high rate because there's a flood of inventory. So I actually just ended up keeping a lot of that land and just sitting on it versus building it and risking selling it with the competition that was out there. So ended up keeping a lot of the land, and that land today, is worth about $900,000 to $950,000. And I don't have any money into it. I own it free and clear. I don't have any mortgages on it, and I probably have $250,000 to $300,000 of my own money in the land, and it's worth about $900,000 to $950,000 right now. And then part of that, the first piece of land I ever actually bought, the first one years ago, I was living in the duplex, and I woke up one day, I was like, I want to build a new construction house. So I looked at all the land that I owned, and I chose the biggest lot so I could build the biggest house and have a 3-car garage. So I went to the land. It was the first piece of parcel I ever bought. I bought it for $3,000. I built the house. It was kind of what I've been envisioning for, the last few years of my life. A weight room in the basement, a 3-car garage, a walk-in closet, a shower, a movie room, a pool table, all those things I wanted. I ended up building the house, moving into it. So I built it. I'm all into it for about $420,000. It's worth about $650,000 right now. But I've been buying rental properties along the way as well. This made sense. Today I own about 30 rental properties. We're actually buying 8 more here in the next couple weeks, which is awesome. I own about 30 of them. 2 of the bigger ones that we've done. The first one was a 6-unit apartment building. It's in that same neighborhood that we do a lot of the work in. It's a 6-unit apartment building. I bought it. It was completely vacant. It was boarded up, and we put almost $500,000 into the construction of the property. So we renovated the entire thing, learned a lot of lessons along the way because it was our biggest project. They do things differently as far as the permitting goes. So learned a ton of lessons. But ended up finishing the project. I have about $850,000 of a bank loan on the property, about $50,000 of my money into the property, and it's worth about $1.1 million. So every month I'm making money on cash flow. The tenants are paying me rent, so I'm making money every month. But I have about $200,000 of equity in that building. And then one of the other buildings that I own is a 6-unit commercial building. So this was the same deal. It was boarded up, it was fire damaged, it was vacant for probably 10 years before we purchased it. So we bought it, we gutted everything out of the entire property, all the way down to the studs, rebuilt the entire property, not new construction, but renovated the whole thing. And I actually have my office in one of the units, and then we rent the other 5 units out. Worth about $650,000, and I'm into it for about $475,000. So I have about $175,000 equity in that deal as well. So that's 12 of the units. And then I have 30 altogether right now. And between all 30 of the properties, between what I owe on it and what it's worth, I have about $1.2 million in equity on those deals. So $1.2 million in equity on my rental properties, about $900,000 in equity on the land that I own in and around downtown. So that's just a little bit over $2 million in net worth. And one of the other big things that I'm doing, about 2.5 years ago, I started pumping a lot of Facebook and Instagram, a lot of content out onto Facebook and Instagram. One of my mentors, kept telling me to give content, data, knowledge, lessons learned, all those things. So I started doing that. And at the beginning, it was very, very scary. I literally sat in front of my phone before I did a Facebook Live for an entire hour. And I had everything written out I was going to say for an entire hour before I ever clicked the play button. Because I was nervous, about what people would think about me, if I would stutter, if I would, start sweating. And finally, thankfully, I did it. For the last 2.5 years, I've been doing it. And it's allowed me to build a lot of awesome relationships with people. I've been able to do joint venture deals, partner deals with people. I've been able to lend money to people. I've been able to teach others how to invest into real estate. And that's added a lot of opportunity, a lot of deals, a lot of net worth at the end of the day. For me, just pumping stuff out on social media, giving as much content and value as possible. And I'm actually shooting this video during COVID-19, something we're all locked at home. We have a stay at home safe order. And it's something else I've done over the past month or so. I've put, a couple $100,000 into the stock market and then also into Amazon automation. So hopefully those both do very well for me and I don't lose a ton of money. But, it's a couple $100,000. Again, I have about $900,000 in equity in land. I have about $1.2 million in equity in my rental properties. Overall, it's, $2+ million in total quote unquote net worth. So multi-millionaire by the age of 26, which has been awesome. I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. So I've been able to meet, a ton of friends. Some of my best friends came from real estate. I've been able to build a ton of, very good relationships through real estate, through business, through social media. And to me, that's the most important part, because net worth is something that's worth on a piece of paper. What is your balance sheet? What are you worth on paper? To me, it's all about the relationships. It's all about, the lifestyle that you can have from that. And it's all about the relationships you build from it. Because, if you're worth $100 million on paper, but you don't have, any friends, any family, any life to do it, and you work 24/7, 365, that's not what it's all about. So, what I've tried to do is I've tried to create a life and then a business. I've enjoyed, traveling around the world. I went on like 20 vacations last year. I spend a lot of time with my family. I go to see them every week. And that's what I do it for. You know what I mean? Money on paper is cool, multi-millionaire, which is awesome. But to me, it's the relationships that I can build from that and the type of lifestyle that you can have from that. As far as the future for me, I'm going to continue in real estate, continue real estate investing, buying rental properties, doing rehabs, doing all those things in real estate that got me to where I'm at and will hopefully continue to get me further. But I'm also, starting to venture off and to start other businesses, data companies, education companies, teaching other people how to invest in real estate, joint venture partners with people. So I'm trying to figure out how to create more money with less time. So that's kind of what I'm focused on. A mentor of mine says, the magician or the mule? Do you want to be the mule humping it out every day? Or do you want to be the one behind the scenes putting the pieces together and making a lot of money doing it? So for me, my future, going to continue real estate, create new businesses, continue pumping out a bunch of content and adding as much value to you guys as possible. The biggest thing that I want to say here is, again, keep in mind, from the day I started real estate to the day I made money was a 16-month period. We all have the times where, life is up and then life is down. Life's a roller coaster. We all have those moments. But the difference is the people that stick to it and stick through it, continue putting the work in, especially at the beginning. The beginning is the hardest part to get started because you don't have anything around you. It is by far the hardest part, but the people that stick through that and continue, like I said at the beginning of this video, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when something happens. So if you stick through it, it will happen. And I promise you, it'll be all worth it. Continue what you're doing. Keep striving. If you got any questions, comments, please comment below. I love getting to know you guys. I love building relationships. I will respond to every comment. So if this added any value, drop a fire emoji below, and or, if you got questions, if anything didn't make sense, definitely drop a comment below. I would love to network with you. I'd love to build that relationship. Also, YouTube has an algorithm, and that like button, phenomenal things for me on YouTube. So if you could hit that like button for me, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. again, push as much value and as much content, back to you guys as possible. So definitely appreciate you being here. I know this was a longer video. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch it. Hopefully, provided some insight, added some value to your life, added some clarity to your life. If you haven't started yet, get started and continue and don't quit. And if you have already started, let's double down. Let's keep growing. Till next time.